Now, more and more articles are coming out about fake frames, and rightfully so, because that's exactly what they are, using AI technologies like, for example, DLSS. Multi frame generation is also something else that is revolutionary in a way, because it's going to be able to allow you to play games at 4K. I mean, it's faking it. It's not really natively at 4K. It might be at 720, for example, or 1K, and upscale to 4K. And by the way, if you go out there and buy a very expensive 4K display and you only have a 4060, why? Why are you doing that? Just go ahead and get a 1080p display with a 4060. Play natively. You don't have to play games at 4K. If you play natively at 1080p, it's going to look great. It is. It's not going to be that poor. A lot of people buy into this lie about, you got to go out there and get a 2K and 4K display. No, you don't, especially if you have a lower end video card. Please don't buy into that. Now, the majority of people actually use these AI technologies, frame generation and DLSS, because really, I guess they have no choice, or they have a fancy display that is like 240 hertz and they want their game to play at 240 plus frames per second consistently. And again, that's the dilemma. That's the problem that you run into, right? You don't have a video card that can push the game natively at the hertz or the frames per second that you want. So you have to use these technologies, and you're wondering why the image looks like poo-poo. Well, that's why. Every single time I try these technologies, I go, yuck. This just doesn't look right, and I turn them off. Now, if you have the luxury of having a high-end video card, you can do that. But if you don't, well, you have no choice, right? Now, almost every single game I play, and I play a lot of games, I use this application called Reshade. Remember that word, Reshade. You can Google it. It is an application where you can go in and tweak pretty much all the visual aspects of a game. What I normally do is go in and tweak a number of things to make the game look the way that I want to, view it. And a lot of times what I end up doing is sharpening it and adjusting the saturation, the colors, and all of that to just make it look perfect. But yeah, even playing games natively, sometimes they can look a little bit blurry and unsharpened, and I hate that. I don't mind stuff in the distance being blurry. That makes sense, right? Depth of field and all, but things that are close to you when you're playing a game, they're all blurry and stuff? No, can't handle it. Now, something else to keep in mind here as well, of course, these AI technologies, well, there's latency involved. There's lag involved with this kind of stuff. So if you are a competitive gamer, you really don't want to be using these technologies. So that goes back to my original point. Why would you buy, like, for example, a 4K display with a poor video card and go, uh-oh, I can't play natively. I have to use these technologies now. And because of that, maybe you aren't doing as well in a game as you might. But frame generation and frame smoothing techniques and all this kind of stuff is kind of fake. It is. I don't know how else to say this, right? It's faking it. And you're going to see more and more reports about this. I mean, look at the results here. When you use DLSS 4, with full ray tracing on, you get 230 frames per second. As opposed to not using it, you get 25 frames per second. Which would you choose? Of course, right? You would go with 234 frames per second, because you can't play the game at 25 frames per second. You want at least 60, right? So you would go for this, and you look at the image and go, geez, looks kind of off. And keep in mind, speaking of 60 frames per second, for MFG or multi-frame generation to be effective, the base frame rate needs to be as high as 60 frames per second, ideally 100 frames per second. So really this multi-frame generation, it'll give you higher frames per second, but the base frame rate does have to be quite high. And keep in mind that there's only maybe a few games as of now that actually use MFG. And this article here mentions what other articles mention as well. The RTX 5090 only offers a modest raw performance without AI involved, so non-DLS and all this kind of stuff. An increase of around 30%, some say 20, some say 25. This article here is referring to 30% faster than the RTX 4090. So really, what's the story with multi-frame generation? Well, I guess for users with high refresh rate monitors and demanding games, multi-frame generation can be a valuable tool when used appropriately. I know I will not be using it, and I will not be using DLSS for either. I have a 1490, and all current games play on ultra and epic settings at 2K for me, no problem whatsoever. And like I said, every single time that I enable and just try these technologies, just for poops and giggles, I don't like it.